My own children sold me off like a piece of old furniture while I pretended to be asleep, listening to every poisonous word that dripped from their rotten mouths. When the old woman finally kicks the bucket at the nursing home, we split everything 50-50, Kevin whispered to Chloe as he counted the stacks of cash he had just pulled from my safe. I hope it doesn't take too long. I'm so tired of pretending to like her, my daughter-in-law replied, that viper I had welcomed into my home like she was my own. There I was, Eleanor, at 66 years old, hiding behind the door of my own bedroom, watching my children plan my death the way other people plan a vacation. Jessica held my will in her dirty hands, laughing because she thought she had been so clever to find where I'd hidden it. Look at this, bro. It says here she's leaving us everything, split right down the middle. Good thing she never found out we already read it. The stench of betrayal filled my house, mingling with Chloe's cheap perfume, and the smoke from the cigarette Kevin was smoking over my green velvet sofa, the one I bought when they were just kids, and I still believed in the idea of family. The light from the crystal lamp, which had belonged to my mother, illuminated their demonic faces as they carved up my life like butchers. The home in Oregon is already paid for 6 months, Jessica said, checking her phone. By the time the money runs out, she'll be so far gone she won't even know what's happening. The three of them laughed like hungry hyenas, and I felt something die inside my chest. It was not my heart, it was my faith in humanity. Chloe took my pearl necklace from the jewelry box, the very one that had belonged to my grandmother, and put it on, admiring herself in the mirror as if it were already hers. "This will go perfectly with my dress for my sister's wedding," she murmured, stroking each pearl, each one holding more history than her entire family tree combined. Kevin clapped like a trained seal. "You look beautiful, babe. That necklace always looked better on you than it did on the old woman." The phrase, "the old woman," slithered out of my own son's mouth like spit. This was the boy I raised with love, the one I fed with my own milk, the one I nursed back to health when he had pneumonia, and the doctors said he might not make it. That same boy was now calling me an old woman, as if I were a piece of trash to be thrown out. My body trembled with contained rage as I watched Jessica open my photo albums and toss them, one by one, into the trash can. 40 years of memories of first smiles, first steps, happy birthdays. It was all going straight into the garbage, as if it had never existed. "What's she going to do with photos where she's going?" she said with a cruelty that froze my blood. Kevin opened my laptop and started going through my bank accounts with a smile that turned my stomach. "Look at this. The old woman has more money than we thought. We can buy that condo on the beach in Florida that Chloe wanted so badly." My daughter-in-law jumped with excitement like a spoiled child. "Yes, and we can also take that trip to Europe we could never afford. Europe with my money, a condo with my hard work, luxuries with my sacrifice. All of it paid for with the blood of a woman who worked herself to the bone to give them a better life, who forgot about herself so that they could have everything. And this is how they repaid me, planning my banishment while they spent my inheritance before I was even dead." The clock in the living room struck 11 at night when Chloe asked, "And what if the old woman puts up a fight tomorrow?" Kevin laughed with a malice that made me tremble. "It's all taken care of. Dr. Mitchell is going to help us. We'll say she has senile dementia and can't take care of herself anymore. The papers are already drawn up. Dr. Mitchell, my trusted physician, the same man who had looked after my health for 15 years, was also in on the plot. The man I trusted with my pains, my fears, my medical secrets, had betrayed me for a few bucks. My own doctor was going to certify that I was crazy to justify my forced deportation. That night, I could not close my eyes. I lay awake in my bed, the same bed where I had mourned the death of my husband, where I had dreamed of watching my grandchildren grow up, where I had planned to grow old with dignity. Now that bed felt like a coffin where I was waiting for my own burial, while still alive. The morning arrived like a death sentence. I woke up with the bitter taste of betrayal still stuck in my throat, pretending I had slept well when in reality I had spent the entire night plotting how to escape the trap my own children had set for me. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafted up from the kitchen, the same coffee I had prepared for them for decades, and now they were making it to celebrate my living funeral. Jessica knocked on my bedroom door with those soft knuckles that once soothed me but now sounded like hammer blows. "Good morning, Mom. How did you sleep? Her fake voice, sweetened like poisonous honey, made me nauseous. I got up slowly, feigning the fragility they wanted to see, while inside I was boiling with contained fury. I went down the stairs, gripping the handrail like a helpless old woman, each step calculated so they would not suspect I had discovered their diabolical plan. The living room looked exactly as it had the night before, but now everything seemed different in the light of day. My furniture, my memories, my entire life felt alien to me, as if it no longer belonged to me. Kevin was sitting in my favorite armchair, reading the newspaper with the calm of someone who has already won the war. He was wearing the blue shirt I had given him for Father's Day, the same shirt that now looked like a loving sun costume. "Morning, Mom," he said without looking up from the paper, as if it were just another normal day, and not the day they were going to exile me forever. Chloe was in the kitchen, preparing breakfast, using my fine china plates, the ones I only brought out for special occasions. How ironic that my last breakfast at home would be served on the dishes reserved for great celebrations. "I made your favorite toast, sweetie," she said with that fake smile I now recognized as pure performance. I sat at the table where I had eaten breakfast for 30 years, where I had celebrated so many birthdays, where I had cried through so many sorrows, and which would now witness my last meal as a free woman. The bread tasted like cardboard, the orange juice tasted sour. Everything had lost its flavor since I discovered the truth about my children. "Mom, we have a surprise for you," Jessica announced with that sing-song voice she used as a child when she had done something mischievous. She pulled a golden envelope from her purse, the kind used for elegant invitations. "We're giving you a trip to Oregon, to a beautiful place where you'll meet people your own age and you'll be super comfortable." The envelope contained the documents of my sentence, disguised as a gift. Plane tickets, information about the assisted living facility, medical authorizations, all perfectly planned to look like an act of filial love instead of the crime it truly was. The photos of the place showed perfect gardens and bright rooms, but I knew it would be my gilded prison. "I do not want to go anywhere," I told them, my voice as firm as I could make it. "I am fine here, in my house." Kevin slammed the newspaper down on the table with a thud that made the cups tremble. "Mom, you can't live alone anymore. Yesterday you forgot to turn off the gas stove. You could have caused an explosion." A lie. I had never forgotten any such thing. But that would be their excuse to the world. Chloe came over and took my hands with that fake tenderness she had perfected over the years. "Eleanor, my love, it's for your own good. There you'll have nurses 24 hours a day, activities, home-cooked meals, everything you need at your age. At my age." As if 66 years was synonymous with mental incapacity. "Besides," Jessica added, playing with her phone, "we already spoke with Dr. Mitchell, and he agrees. He says you need constant medical supervision." Mitchell's name came out of her mouth like another stab wound. My trusted doctor, the man who knew every one of my ailments, every one of my worries, had betrayed me for money. Kevin got up and started pacing the living room like a caged lion. "The plane leaves this afternoon, Mom. Everything is already arranged. There's no turning back." This afternoon, I had just a few hours of freedom left before being deported like a criminal to a faraway state where I would die alone and forgotten. "And what if I do not want to go?" I asked, already knowing the answer, but needing to hear it from their own lips. The three of them looked at each other with the complicity of criminals who have rehearsed every move. "It's not optional, Mom," Jessica replied with a coldness that chilled me to the bone. "We've already signed all the papers. Legally, we're your guardians now." Guardians. My own children had become my owners while I slept, trusting in their love. They had used my trust, my unconditional love, my blind faith in family to enslave me. Legally. It was the masterstroke of a perfect scam. Chloe went up to my room to help me pack. But really, it was to make sure I did not take anything valuable. She checked every drawer, every corner, every hiding spot where I might have kept jewelry or important documents. "You do not need so many things, Eleanor," she would say, as she separated my life into two piles, what they would let me take and what would stay for them. My family photos went directly into the discard pile. "You'll have activities there to keep you busy. You won't have time for nostalgia," she explained, as she threw away the photo of my wedding, the photo of Kevin's birth, The photo of Jessica's first day of school. 40 years of family history deleted like computer spam. The scent of my home was fading, replaced by Chloe's aggressive perfume and the disinfectant they had used to clean away any trace of my presence. It was as if they were erasing me from the map before I had even left, preparing the stage for a life without Eleanor. The most humiliating moment came when the doorbell rang and Dr. Mitchell appeared with his black medical bag and that smile that once reassured me. "Eleanor, my dear, how are you?" he asked with that syrupy voice I now recognized as pure deceit. He had come to examine me to sign the papers that would certify my supposed dementia, the document that would legalize my kidnapping. "Sit here, Eleanor," he said, pointing to the sofa where I had so many times welcomed my guests. Now I was the unwelcome guest in my own living room. Mitchell opened his bag with the calm of someone who has done this 1,000 times, taking out medical instruments that shined under the light like a butcher's knives. Kevin sat down beside me, taking my arm with that feigned tenderness that disgusted me. "It's okay, Mom. The doctor just wants to check that you're all right for the trip." The trip? What a pretty word to disguise a forced exile. Chloe was recording everything with her phone, creating evidence of their concern for my well-being. "Eleanor, do you remember what you had for breakfast today?" Mitchell asked me while he jotted down my answers in a notepad. Every question was a trap. Every answer another knot in the noose that would legally hang me. "Do you know what day it is today? Do you remember the president's name?" Questions designed to confuse me, to make me doubt my own sanity. Jessica approached with fake tears streaming down her cheeks. "Doctor, yesterday she forgot to turn off the stove. We are very worried. We do not know what else could happen." Lie after lie, constructing an alternate reality where I was a senile old woman who needed to be institutionalized for her own good. "And," Chloe added with a performance worthy of an Oscar, "last night we found her wandering around the house in her pajamas, saying there were burglars. We think she's having hallucinations." Hallucinations? How ironic. The only burglars in this house were the three of them, robbing me of my dignity in broad daylight. Mitchell nodded with the false wisdom of someone who had already made his decision before conducting the exam. "It's normal at this age, Eleanor. The brain deteriorates and needs constant supervision." My brain was perfectly fine, fine enough to discover their plan and to plot my revenge. "But doctor," I said with the most trembling voice I could feign, "I feel fine here in my house. I do not want to go anywhere." My words bounced off the walls like screams in a vacuum. No one was listening to me. No one believed me. No one was defending me. It was like being in a trial where all the judges had already decided my guilt. Kevin showed Mitchell a stack of papers he had taken from his briefcase. Power of attorney documents, medical authorizations, papers that turned me into a legal non-person. "We have everything ready, doctor. We just need your signature to make it official." The signature that would bury me alive, that would turn me into a ghost of my own existence. "Eleanor, this is for your own good," Mitchell said to me as he signed each document with that golden pen that gleamed like blood-stained gold. "In Oregon, you will be better cared for. You will have company, activities, everything a person your age needs. A person my age, as if 66 years were a terminal illness." Chloe helped me put on my coat. That black coat I had bought for my husband's funeral and would now wear to my own social burial. "You look beautiful, Eleanor," she lied as she buttoned it up for me as if I were a small child. "You're going to make lots of new friends." The car service was waiting outside with the engine running, like a hearse ready to take me to my final destination. Kevin carried my small suitcase, the one that contained only the bare essentials for survival, while they were left with a house full of memories and treasures accumulated over decades. Jessica hugged me at the door, and for a moment, just for a moment, I felt that perhaps there was a shred of real love in that embrace. "We will visit you soon, Mom," she whispered in my ear. But her words sounded as hollow as a politician's campaign promises. "Take care of yourselves," I said, looking at them one last time, standing in the doorway of my house, knowing it would probably be the last time I would ever see them. Kevin raised his hand in a farewell gesture that seemed more like a papal blessing than a loving son's goodbye. The car pulled away slowly down the street, where I had lived my entire adult life, where I had raised my children, where I had planned to grow old surrounded by family love. Now that street was becoming a memory, a mental photograph I would have to preserve forever. Chloe was already in the garden watering my plants, as if she were the new owner of the house. Kevin had gone back inside, probably to start planning the sale of my furniture. Jessica waved until the house was out of sight, feigning sadness until the very last second. During the ride to the airport, the driver tried to make conversation. "Going on vacation?" he asked, looking at me in the rearview mirror. "Something like that," I replied, because how could you explain to a stranger that your own children had sold you off like old cattle? How could you tell him you were on your way to a disguised exile? A gift? At the airport, Kevin handed me the travel documents like a travel agent. "Everything's in order, Mom. When you arrive, someone from the home will be waiting for you." Someone from the home? I did not even know the name of the person who would receive me at my new prison. Nor did I care anymore. The plane took off, carrying my last vestiges of hope into the gray clouds that covered the sky. An 8-hour flight to the place where my children had decided I would die alone. 8 hours to process that the family for whom I had sacrificed my entire life had betrayed me in the most cruel way imaginable. The flight attendant smiled at me with professional kindness while I pretended to read a magazine. But the words blurred between the tears I refused to shed. Upon landing, the Oregon chill hit my face like a slap of reality. A man holding a sign that read, "Eleanor Morrison, Meadowbrook Fields," was waiting for me at the exit, dressed in a white uniform that looked more like a nurse's than a driver's. "Mrs. Eleanor, welcome to Oregon," he said with the forced courtesy of someone who works with disposable elders. The drive to the home was a tour of my new reality. Unfamiliar streets, familiar language but strange accents, faces that would never know or remember me. It was a beautiful state, but for me, it had become a gilded prison where I would serve my sentence of abandonment. Meadowbrook Fields rose up like a white marble palace, with perfectly manicured gardens and windows that shone under the afternoon sun. It was exactly as it had appeared in the brochure, beautiful on the outside and cold on the inside. The director, a 50-year-old woman with a commercial smile, received me in the lobby as if I were a tourist arriving at a luxury hotel. "Mrs. Eleanor, what a pleasure to have you with us," she said while she reviewed my papers with the efficiency of someone processing human cargo. "Your family has told us so much about you. You're going to be very comfortable here. We have activities, physical therapy, entertainment, everything a person in your situation needs. My situation, as if being abandoned by your children was a disease with a scientific name." I was assigned to room 204, a small but clean room with a view of the garden, where I would spend my last years watching flowers grow that others had planted, while my own children sold the flowers I had cultivated for decades. The first night at Meadowbrook was the longest of my life. The bed was comfortable, the food decent, the staff friendly, but none of it could fill the void I felt in my chest. There were elderly people playing cards in the common room, others watching television, some painting landscapes, all pretending that being there was a choice and not a sentence. Mary, my roommate, was 80 years old and had been at the home for 3 years. "It hurts at first," she told me as she prepared for bed, "but you get used to it. The children have their own lives. We've already done our time." Her resignation filled me with more pity than anger, as if she had accepted that being a mother was a temporary job with an expiration date. During the first few weeks, I tried calling Kevin and Jessica, but they always had excuses. "We are so busy with work, Mom. We will call you next week. We cannot talk right now." Little by little, I began to understand that my deportation also included my social death, my gradual elimination from their lives until I became a ghost of the past. The letters I wrote to them came back unopened. The emails bounced back as if my address had been blocked. It was as if Eleanor Morrison had died the day she boarded that plane. As if the woman who had raised them, fed them, educated them, and loved them unconditionally had never existed. One afternoon, while walking through the gardens of the home, I overheard a nurse talking on the phone about a resident whose family had sold her house without telling her. "It's what always happens," she said with the casualness of someone who has seen this 1,000 times. "They bring them here and then forget they exist." Her words froze my blood because I knew she was talking about me. That night, I decided to do something I should have done from day one. Call my lawyer back in Chicago. Patricia Chen had been my legal advisor for 15 years, a woman of integrity who knew all my assets, all my investments, all my important documents. If anyone could help me, it was her. "Eleanor, where are you?" was the first thing she asked when she heard my voice. "Your children came to my office saying you had died of a heart attack in Oregon. They even brought a forged death certificate." The world collapsed around me. My own children had legally killed me to speed up the inheritance. "Patricia, I am alive, and I need your help," I said, my voice breaking. I told her everything: the deception, the nursing home, the fake documents, the sale of my house, the entire diabolical plan they had executed with military precision. Every word that came out of my mouth sounded like a horror movie. But it was my reality. "Eleanor, this is extremely serious. If they presented a false death certificate, they've committed fraud. But I need you to come back to Chicago so we can act legally." "Come back?" The word sounded impossible from my Oregon prison. But Patricia was right. I could not fight from a distance. "How can I get out of here if legally?" "I'm incapacitated?" I asked, feeling despair drown me. "Leave that to me," she replied with a determination I had always admired in her. "I'm sending a legal representative to Oregon. This is not going to stand." For the next few days, I pretended to be adjusting to the home. All the while, I was planning my escape. I smiled during group activities, participated in therapy sessions, ate in the common dining hall. My mind was working at full speed, planning my revenge. Patricia's representative arrived the following week, a lawyer named Ricardo Mendoza, who reviewed all my documents and confirmed what we already knew. My institutionalization had been based on forged papers and perjured testimony. "Mrs. Eleanor, you are here illegally. This is kidnapping disguised as medical care." Ricardo Mendoza worked like a private detective for 2 weeks, gathering evidence of the scam my children had mounted with the precision of professional criminals. Every day that passed in the home, I pretended to be the resigned old woman they expected, but inside I was boiling with rage and planning every move of my counterattack. "Eleanor, this is worse than we thought. Ricardo told me during one of our secret meetings in the garden. Your children not only faked your death, but they've already sold your house, emptied your bank accounts, and are living like millionaires with your money." Every word was another stab in my already shattered heart. "Patricia called me every night to coordinate the rescue operation. We need you to come back without them finding out. If they discover you're alive ahead of time, they'll hide the evidence, and it will be impossible to recover your assets." It was a race against time, where every second counted. My plan began to take shape when I discovered that the home had a computer for residents to use. At night, when everyone was asleep, I would sneak down to check my bank accounts online. What I saw confirmed my worst suspicions. My life savings had vanished, transferred to accounts I did not recognize. Kevin had opened accounts in the names of shell companies to launder my money. Chloe had bought the beach condo she had always dreamed of, using my savings as if they were her own. Jessica had paid for her children's private university tuition with the money I had saved for my own medical expenses. It was a systemic betrayal, planned down to the last detail. But my most devastating discovery came when I found Chloe's social media profiles. She had posted photos of my house completely remodeled, with new furniture bought with my money. In one photo, she was toasting with champagne in my garden, celebrating the new chapter of their lives. The comments from her friends congratulated her for finally being free of the toxic mother-in-law. Jessica had been even more cruel in her posts. She uploaded a crying video, talking about how incredibly difficult it had been to lose her mom to dementia, and thanking her followers for their support during this trying time. 500 people had commented, sending condolences for my supposed mental illness. That night, I could not sleep. Seeing how my own children had turned my destruction into social media content filled me with a rage I did not know existed within me. But that rage transformed into cold determination, into a revenge plan that would be as perfect as their scam had been. Ricardo brought me encouraging news the following week. "Patricia has already filed a criminal complaint for fraud, forgery, and embezzlement. She also got a court order to freeze all bank accounts associated with your name." The wheels of justice were beginning to turn, slowly but relentlessly. "But Eleanor," he added seriously, "we need you to come back soon. The investigation will move much faster if you're present to testify. Returning meant facing my children, looking them in the eyes, knowing what they had done, faking surprise when they saw me resurrected from the dead. My escape from the home was easier than I expected. Ricardo had arranged all the legal paperwork to prove that my confinement had been fraudulent. The director of Meadowbrook Fields apologized 1,000 times, explaining that they had acted in good faith based on documents that appeared legitimate. "Mrs. Eleanor, we are so terribly sorry about this situation. This has never happened at our institution before." End quote. The flight back to Chicago was completely different. I was no longer a defeated old woman being deported by her children, but a 66-year-old woman planning the sweetest revenge of her life. Every mile that brought me closer to home was a mile closer to justice. Patricia was waiting for me at O'Hare Airport with a smile I had not seen since before I discovered the betrayal. "Eleanor, you look radiant," she said, hugging me as if I were a sister returning from war, ready to give those ungrateful children the surprise of their lives. During the drive into the city, Patricia updated me on everything she had discovered during my absence. Kevin had bought a luxury car. Chloe had gotten a full facelift at the most expensive clinic in the city. Jessica had completely remodeled her house. "All with your money, Eleanor, but they can't touch another cent. And they know I am back?" I asked, feeling my heart race with excitement. "They have no idea. Officially, you're still dead to them. They're going to get the shock of their lives when you walk into the legal hearing next week." Patricia had booked a hotel for me near downtown, where I could prepare for the final confrontation without my children suspecting a thing. "Eleanor, I want you to know that during these months, I've been collecting evidence. I have audio recordings, screenshots, bank statements, everything we need to prove their guilt." That night, in the solitude of my hotel room, I looked at myself in the mirror and saw a different woman. The months in Oregon had toughened me, had given me a strength I did not know I had. I was no longer the naive Eleanor who trusted blindly in family love. I was a wiser, stronger, and definitely more dangerous Eleanor. "Tomorrow, we begin the counteroffensive," I said to the mirror as I prepared for sleep. For the first time in months, I slept like a baby, knowing that justice was on my side and that my ungrateful children were about to receive the most expensive lesson of their lives. The morning of the confrontation arrived like a sunrise of justice. Patricia had planned everything with the precision of a general preparing for a decisive battle. "Eleanor, today your children are going to find out that they killed the goose that laid the golden eggs. But the goose has been resurrected, and she is furious," she said as we reviewed the documents one last time in her office. The plan was perfect. Kevin and Jessica had been summoned to the lawyer's office to sign the final papers for their dead mother's estate. They believed they were going to receive the deeds to additional properties they had discovered among my documents. Greed had blinded them so much that they suspected nothing when Patricia called them in for an urgent meeting. "Are you ready for this?" Patricia asked as we walked towards the conference room. My heart was beating like a war drum, but my mind was as cold as steel. More than ready. I have waited months for this moment. We arrived early and positioned ourselves strategically. I would be hidden in the adjoining office, listening to everything through the slightly open door, waiting for the perfect moment to make my triumphant entrance. Patricia had a recorder on her desk and cameras installed to document the entire meeting. At 10 o'clock sharp, I heard the familiar voices of my children in the hallway. Kevin was speaking with that new money arrogance he had developed while spending my money. "I hope this is the last signature. I'm already sick of all this paperwork," he said, his expensive leather shoes echoing against the marble floor. Jessica laughed with that fake laugh she had perfected to hide her wickedness. "At least we're finally done with this whole process. Mom would have been proud to see us handling her affairs so well." Proud. The word made me sick. I would be proud to see them rot in prison for being thieves and emotional patricides. Chloe came in complaining about the traffic, carrying a designer handbag that cost more than a working family's monthly salary. "How much longer is this going to take?" "I have a spa appointment at 12. A spa appointment paid for with my money, of course. While I had spent months eating nursing home food and sleeping in a borrowed bed, Patricia greeted them with a professional smile that perfectly concealed her true intentions. "Good morning, family. Thank you for being so punctual. We have some important matters to resolve regarding Mrs. Eleanor's estate." More matters? Kevin asked with the impatience of someone who thinks he has already won. We thought we were done with all the legal formalities. His voice sounded annoyed, as if bureaucracy were a minor obstacle in his perfect robbery plan. Well, Patricia replied, arranging the papers on her desk. Some irregularities have come up that we need to clarify before we can proceed with the final transfers. The word irregularities hung in the air like a bomb about to explode. Jessica leaned forward with that feigned curiosity she used when she wanted to appear innocent. What kind of irregularities? We have been completely transparent throughout this whole process. As transparent as mud, I thought from my hiding place. You see, Patricia continued with the calm of a hunter stalking her prey, we have received information suggesting that the death certificate that was initially presented may have some inconsistencies. The words fell like stones into a silent pond. The silence that followed was so thick you could cut it with a knife. I heard Kevin shifting nervously in his chair, Chloe holding her breath for a second, Jessica clearing her throat, trying to buy time to process the information. Inconsistencies? Kevin repeated, his voice trying to sound confident but trembling slightly. I do not understand what you mean. The certificate was issued by the hospital in Oregon where Mom died. Every lie that came out of his mouth was another confession of his guilt. Patricia opened a thick folder full of documents she had been preparing for weeks. Indeed, a hospital in Oregon did issue a certificate, but it turns out the person who died in that hospital was named Eleanor Morris, not Eleanor Morrison, like your mother. The sound of papers falling to the floor told me someone had lost control of their documents. Probably Jessica, who had always been the more nervous of the two when it came to maintaining elaborate lies. It must be a clerical error, Chloe stammered with that high-pitched voice she used when she was scared. Hospitals make mistakes all the time, especially with out-of-state patients. Every word she spoke sank them deeper into their own legal grave. How funny you should mention that, Patricia replied with a smile I could not see but could feel in her voice. Because we also contacted Meadowbrook Fields in Oregon directly, where your mother was supposedly staying. The silence filled the room again, but this time it was different. It was the silence of terror, of criminals who feel the trap they built closing in on them. I could imagine their pale faces, their sweaty hands, their brains working desperately to find a way out. And what did they tell you? Jessica asked, in a voice so small I could barely hear it from my hiding place. It was the voice of a little girl who knows she has been caught doing something very, very wrong. They told us something very interesting, Patricia continued, savoring each word like a fine wine. They told us that Eleanor Morrison had been discharged 3 weeks ago and had returned to Chicago. Very much alive, very lucid, and very upset about having been institutionalized based on falsified documents. The uproar that followed Patricia's words sounded like a symphony of panic. Chairs falling, muffled screams, footsteps running towards the door. But Patricia had locked it, and my dear children were trapped in their own scheme like rats in a maze with no exit. That's impossible, Kevin shouted, his voice cracking like glass under pressure. My mother is dead. We saw the certificate. We paid for the funeral. Every word was another confession of his guilt. Every shout another proof of his desperation. Jessica started to hyperventilate, that broken, gasping sound she used to make as a child when we caught her in a lie. Patricia, this has to be a mistake. Mom died of a heart attack in Oregon. We did everything by the book. We consulted doctors. We followed procedure. Her voice faded like smoke in the wind. Procedure? Patricia interrupted her with a coldness that filled me with pride. Are you referring to the procedure where you forged your mother's signature on legal documents? Or the procedure where you bribed a doctor to certify a non-existent case of dementia? Chloe tried to maintain her composure, but her voice trembled like a leaf in a storm. We acted in good faith. Eleanor was sick, confused. She couldn't take care of herself. Everything we did was for her own good. For my good. What refined cynicism. To wrap their greed in words of filial love. It was my moment. The moment I had dreamed of during all those cold nights in the Oregon home. During all those days of humiliation and abandonment, I rose from my chair with the dignity of a queen returning to reclaim her usurped throne. I opened the door to the adjoining office and walked into the conference room like a ghost returning to settle scores with the living. The silence that followed my appearance was so absolute, I could hear my own heart beating and the sound of 3 souls plummeting into hell. Kevin was the first to see me, and his face transformed into a mask of pure horror. The blood drained from his face as if he had seen death personified. "Mom?" he stammered, his voice sounding like it came from beyond the grave. But you're dead?" I completed his sentence with a smile I had been saving for months. "No, Kevin. Very much alive, very clear, headed, and very, very angry." My voice sounded different, deeper, more powerful. It was the voice of a woman who had been resurrected to serve justice. Jessica fainted. She literally collapsed in her chair like a sack of potatoes, her eyes rolling back as her brain refused to process the reality of my presence. Chloe held her up with trembling hands, but her eyes were fixed on me as if I were a supernatural apparition. Eleanor, my love," Chloe stammered, trying to muster that fake smile she had so perfected. "What a joy to see you!" "We thought that you had." Her voice broke because she could not complete the lie in the face of the living evidence of my existence. "You thought I had died," I said, walking slowly around the table like a predator stalking its prey. "Or perhaps you hoped I had died, because there's a very big difference between those two things. Wouldn't you agree?" Kevin tried to stand up, but his legs would not support him. "Mom, we can explain everything. There was a misunderstanding, a mix-up with the papers." His voice sounded like that of a small child begging for forgiveness after breaking something valuable. "A misunderstanding?" I repeated with a laugh that came from my soul. But it was not a laugh of joy, but of pure justice. Was calling Dr. Mitchell to certify my dementia a misunderstanding? Was emptying my bank accounts a misunderstanding? Was selling my house a misunderstanding? Patricia opened another folder and began to spread photographs across the table. They were screenshots from my children's social media accounts, photos of their luxury purchases, videos of their celebrations, irrefutable evidence of how they had celebrated my supposed death while spending my money. "Look at this," Patricia said, pointing to a photo of Chloe toasting with champagne in my garden. "Here's Chloe celebrating her new life on the very same day you had me committed in Oregon." Was that also a misunderstanding? Jessica had regained consciousness but seemed to be in shock. Her eyes darted from my face to the photographs, as if trying to process 2 incompatible realities. "Mom, we thought it was for the best. The home was very nice. It had good care. The best for me?" I exploded with a rage I had been holding in for months. "The best for me was to die alone and abandoned in a strange state while you spent my life savings? The best for me was for you to fake my death to speed up the inheritance?" Kevin tried one last desperate move. "Mom, we can fix everything. We can give it all back to you, the house, the money, everything." It was a mistake, a moment of confusion. His voice cracked with every word, like a castle of cards collapsing piece by piece. "Give it back?" I laughed with a bitterness that came from the depths of my heart. "Are you going to give me back the months of humiliation? Are you going to give me back the nights I cried, thinking my own children had forgotten me forever? Are you going to give me back the trust I had in my family?" Patricia approached my children with a final folder, the thickest of all. "This is the criminal complaint we have filed against you: document fraud, embezzlement, forgery of public documents, and kidnapping. Each of these crimes carries a minimum sentence of 5 years in prison." The sound that came from Kevin's throat was like the whimper of a wounded animal. Chloe began to cry, but they were not tears of repentance, but of self-pity, tears for her ruined future, not for the harm they had caused me. Brenda was the first to try the path of supplication, falling to her knees before me, as if she were a penitent seeking divine absolution. "Mom, forgive us, please. We made a terrible mistake, but we're your family. You can't destroy us like this." Her tears wet the marble floor, but I had cried oceans in Oregon, and my tears had run dry forever. "Family?" I repeated the word as if it were poison in my mouth. "Families take care of each other. They protect each other. They love each other unconditionally. You treated me like garbage that needed to be thrown as far away as possible." My voice was serene, but each word was laden with months of accumulated pain. Kevin tried to approach me with his arms outstretched, as if a hug could erase months of betrayal. Mom, I know we made mistakes, but we can start over. We're your blood, you can't forget that. Blood. How ironic that he would mention blood when he had drained all of mine without anesthesia. My blood, I murmured, looking at him with a mixture of pity and contempt. My blood that I nourished for 9 months in my womb, that I raised with love, that I protected from all the dangers of the world. And in the end, my own blood was what poisoned me. His words bounced off my ears like stones against a steel wall. Patricia spread the complete inventory of everything they had stolen across the table. The house sold for $1 million. Bank accounts emptied for a value of $400,000. Jewelry sold. Antique furniture auctioned off. Even my car had been sold. The total amounted to nearly $1.5 million that they had squandered in 6 months. Look at this detail, Patricia said, pointing to a specific line in the document. They spent $20,000 in a single night at a casino in Las Vegas. $20,000 that Eleanor had saved by working 18-hour days for years. Each number was another stab at my already wounded dignity. Chloe tried the victim strategy. Eleanor, I was just following my husband. Wives have to support their husbands, don't they? I never wanted to hurt you. How convenient to become a victim when they had been my executioners for months. Marital support? I confronted her with a gaze that could melt steel. Is marital support recording videos of yourself crying over my supposed dementia while you spend my money on plastic surgery? Is it marital support to post on social media that you had freed yourself from the toxic mother-in-law? The color completely drained from Chloe's face when she realized we had seen her posts. Her mask of the loving daughter-in-law collapsed like a house of wet cards. Eleanor, those posts. I was confused, hurt. I did not know how to process it all. Confused? I exploded, rising from my chair with an energy I did not know I had. I was the one who was confused in that Oregon home, wondering what I had done wrong to deserve such a punishment. I was the one who was confused when the letters I sent you came back unopened. Kevin made his last desperate attempt at emotional manipulation. Mom, think about the grandchildren. They love you. They can't grow up knowing that their grandmother sent their parents to prison. The grandchildren. Of course, he would use the children as a human shield as his last resort. The grandchildren. I repeated with infinite sadness. The same grandchildren you told that I had died. The same grandchildren who cried at my fake funeral while you pretended to be sad. Are you going to explain to them that their grandmother came back to life, or that their parents are liars? Patricia then revealed the coup de grace. Eleanor, there's something else you need to know. We found evidence that this was not a spontaneous decision. They planned your institutionalization for at least 6 months. We have emails between them discussing how to divide your inheritance since January of this year. The silence that followed was sepulchral. 6 months. They had been planning my exile for half a year, smiling to my face while they plotted my destruction in secret. Every hug, every I love you, Mom, every smile had been a performance while they prepared my living burial. 6 months, I repeated, feeling something definitively break inside my heart. 6 months of pretending to love me while you planned how to get rid of me. 6 months of Judas kisses on my cheek. It was the most perfect betrayal, the cruelest, the most calculated. Jessica tried one last desperate lie. Mom, those emails were misinterpreted. We just wanted to secure your future, to find the best place for you to be comfortable. Her voice was breaking because not even she believed her own words. Patricia read one of the emails aloud. I've already researched 3 homes. The one in Oregon is perfect because she won't know anyone and will be completely isolated. I figure in 2 years, maximum, we'll be free. The email was signed by Kevin and sent to Jessica with a copy to Chloe. 2 years, maximum. I repeated the words, as if they were a death sentence. You calculated that in 2 years I would be dead from sadness and abandonment. What mathematical precision to measure your own mother's time of agony. My voice sounded hollow, as if it came from a tomb. Eleanor, Patricia said, taking my arm with the tenderness my own children had denied me. Do you want to proceed with the criminal charges, or would you prefer we resolve this civilly? It was my moment to decide between legal justice and personal revenge. I looked at my 3 executioners trembling before me, hoping that my motherly love would be stronger than my thirst for justice. For 66 years, I had been Eleanor the mother, Eleanor the protector, Eleanor, the one who forgives everything. But that Eleanor had died in that nursing home in Oregon. Proceed with all charges, I said with a firmness that surprised even myself. I want them to pay for everything they did to me. Every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of humiliation. It was my complete resurrection, my transformation from victim to avenger. 6 months after that day in the lawyer's office, I wake up every morning in my new house by the sea, a house I bought with the money I recovered from my traitorous children. The sound of the waves crashing against the rocks is the only music I need to accompany my morning coffee, served in porcelain cups. I chose myself, without the pressure to please anyone but me. Justice moved slowly but relentlessly. Kevin was sentenced to 8 years in prison for aggravated fraud and forgery of documents. Chloe received 6 years as an accomplice, and her beach condo was seized to pay for restitution. Jessica, being considered less culpable, received 5 years of probation and community service at a nursing home. What poetic irony that she now has to care for abandoned old people every single day. I recovered every cent of my stolen money, plus the interest and penalties the judge deemed fair. $1.5 million returned to my accounts, but more important than the money was recovering my dignity. Patricia became not only my lawyer but my closest friend, the sister I never had, but that fate gifted me in my golden years. My new will is a legal masterpiece. My entire estate will be divided among 5 charities that help elderly people abandoned by their families. My children will each receive exactly $1, so they can buy a piece of gum and remember the bitter taste of betrayal, as I wrote in a special clause that Patricia drafted with a malicious smile. The letters of supplication arrived for months, first from prison, then through lawyers, then through common friends trying to be mediators. They all ended up in the same fireplace where I burn logs every night, while I read books I never had time to enjoy when I was a devoted mother. The fire consumes their words, just as they consumed my love. The grandchildren were the hardest part to process. Their other grandparents gradually explained the truth to them, and now they understand that Grandma Eleanor is not dead, but she is also not available to those who betrayed her. It is a harsh but necessary lesson about the consequences of family actions. I hope that one day they will understand that I protected their ethical future more than their emotional comfort. My daily routine is simple and perfect. I wake up with the sun. I water the plants in my garden that grow freely, without the pressure of impressing fake visitors. I read for hours in my hammock, under the shade of a tree I planted the day I moved here. In the afternoons, I paint watercolors of the seascape, something I always wanted to do but never had time for because I was busy being the perfect mother to imperfect children. The neighbors know me as Mrs. Eleanor, the mysterious lady who came from the city with a story that no one fully knows but everyone respects. I greet them cordially. I help when they might need me, but I guard my privacy like a treasure I learned to value after decades of family invasion. Mitchell, my traitorous doctor, lost his medical license and faces criminal charges for falsifying medical documents. His practice closed, his patients abandoned him, and now he works as a health insurance salesman. Life has its own way of delivering justice beyond the courts. At night, when the sun sets, painting the sky orange and pink, I sit on my terrace with a glass of red wine and reflect on the woman I was and the woman I have become. The first lived for others, sacrificed everything for family love, believed that being a mother was synonymous with being a martyr. The second lives for herself, loves without sacrificing herself, and understands that respect is earned with clear boundaries. I feel no resentment. Resentment is a poison one drinks hoping others will die, and I chose to live fully instead of dying slowly of bitterness. I feel justice, I feel peace, I feel freedom. My children taught me the most valuable lesson of my life, that unconditional love only works when it is reciprocal. Sometimes people ask if I miss them. The answer is complex. I miss the children they were, not the adults they became. I miss the illusions I had about them, not the reality of who they proved to be. It is like missing a book that turned out to have a terrible ending. You miss the hope, not the disappointment. My new will includes a letter to be read after my natural death. In it, I explain that I chose to die surrounded by dignity rather than live surrounded by hypocrisy, that I preferred honest solitude to false companionship, that I learned that sometimes the purest love is the one that withdraws when it is no longer valued. This morning, as I write these reflections in my journal, the mailman arrives with a certified letter. It is from Kevin, from prison, another plea for forgiveness. Without opening it, I walk to the fireplace where the morning fire is burning. The letter is consumed in seconds, turning into ashes that rise up the chimney towards the blue sky. I sit in my favorite armchair, the one I chose for comfort and not to impress visitors, and I open my book of poetry to the marked page. I read aloud to myself, because my voice deserves to be heard, even if only by my own ears. Outside, seagulls fly free over the infinite ocean, and I smile because I finally understand that the true inheritance I can leave is not money or property, but the example of a woman who learned to value herself before it was too late. The sea breeze comes in through the open window, carrying away the last vestige of the Eleanor I was, and blessing the Eleanor I am. I do not need forgiveness from those who betrayed me, because I have already forgiven myself for taking so long to love me. This is my true resurrection. Not returning to the life I had, but being born into the life I deserve.